Hello and welcome to this session or this talk or this whatever you want to call it of ZED Talks. I am joined today with the amazing Emily Pearson. We haven't actually had a huge dialogue in person. So this is the first time you're going to experience us together. And I think that that's pretty nice and unique. And we hope that we've got a topic that is going to really tick your boxes and float your boat. Emily is about to release her next book, which is all around human sustainability. And that is exactly what we're going to get into today. What is it? What is it all about? And I know that Emily's going to share some real personal insights of her story in that. So welcome, Emily. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on ZED Talks. Thank you. And I can't wait to learn from you.
No problem at all. No, thank you for giving me the space to talk about these really important topics. And there's no better time. I think now is definitely the right time to be having conversations around human sustainability and lived experience, just the experience that humans are having right now. Like you mentioned, we talk so much about AI, and I'm a big fan of AI, but the human experience is something that AI will never be able to replicate. So sharing those stories, it's ancient, isn't it? So looking forward to having a conversation today.
Love it. And thank you. And so my spidery senses, I often talk about this on in ZED Talks, which is the human body. The body keeps a score and energy doesn't lie. I often talk about that in terms of as we talk, listeners may experience some sensations in their body because we're talking at a soul level. When something resonates with us, you may feel goosebumps, you may feel chills, you may feel like water's being thrown over you. And that's a sign. It's a good sign. It's a sign that this is speaking the language that somewhere within you, this is really resonating. And for me, I always like to say to people, pay attention to that. Your body is a GPS, and it's really asking you to listen to it. So let's kick off with tell us about your book, Emily. Tell us about human sustainability.
Okay, so the book is called Solving a CEO's Blind Spot, Human Sustainability. And I wrote this, took me 12 months to write it, but it was all off the back of my lived experience, but also the experience of what I was seeing within workplaces around workplace wellbeing. So my background's health and social care. I worked in the field for 16 years before moving into workplace wellbeing 10 years ago. So I've worked in this field for a very, very long time. And at the forefront of the mental health in the workplace movement 10 years ago, nobody was talking about mental health then in a workplace setting. So I was very lucky to be part of the team at Mind, National Mind. We were commissioned by the government to develop and deliver the first ever mental health culture change programme, but it was for emergency services called the Blue Light Programme. It was amazing. We worked on it for 3 years. The evidence, the impact, the people that we met, the change that we saw within emergency services, very masculinized, majority male. You would think that it would be difficult to move the needle, but actually they were ready to have these conversations, and the data was telling us that there was a big issue. So we ran the program, and because of the impact, I realized that actually if we could make such a change in a masculinized, very majority male, or not just organizations, but across that whole sector, then we could do it anywhere. So I left Mind and set up my first business, Our Minds Work. And that was exactly what our mission was. It was about bringing workplace mental health into an understanding of how do we actually change the culture around it. It wasn't just about awareness, it was actually a cultural change model that we developed. And throughout that, for the first really 4 years, first 2 years of Our Minds Work, we started to notice that workplace wellbeing started to get a lot of airtime. There was so much data out there, the importance of it, but it wasn't being picked up as business critical. It was often shoehorned into an HR role. Nobody was given any training on how to develop a strategy, how to deliver a strategy, any theories and models that we needed to utilize. And then we started to see it evolve a little bit, and we moved away from talking about awareness more into culture change and leadership. The language was changing, but we weren't seeing a change at that well-being lead level. We started to see more well-being leads as dedicated roles. So we started to see this emerging occupation of the well-being lead that had never, happened before. But again, it was still not seen as business critical. Wellbeing leads were often, again, not developed, lacking in capabilities, lacking in knowledge, skills, tools, the confidence and the credibility to actually make impactful change. And then here we are almost, 10 years later from the start of workplace mental health and wellbeing conversation 10 years ago, and nothing's really changed. We don't need more data to tell us that human well-being is in crisis right now. We know that. And we don't need more data to tell us that businesses are also in crisis. The economy is in crisis. And a lot of it is to do with what I call human sustainability. We are not sustaining the energy, health, and well-being of people, not just in workplaces, but out in society as well. And then therefore, what we are seeing is more mental health, poor mental health, sickness, absence than we've ever had. Work-related stress is the number one cause of work-related sickness, absence. Poor mental health is the number one cause of unemployment. And it's just trending in all the wrong directions. So the book for me was about helping to really break the ceiling between people who were leading on well-being to get them into the boardroom with a new reframing of the word well-being, because I think 10 years we've tried with the well-being terminology and it hasn't really stuck. So by turning it into this concept around human sustainability, it makes such sense when you say that if you are a CEO or a board, your main strategy is to create a sustainable, profitable, high value, long-term business. You can only do that if the energy, health, and well-being of your main resource as humans in that organization is sustained. And we're not doing that. So for me, human sustainability, and that has become the CEO's blind spot, really. So the book is all about bringing that blind spot into acknowledgement for boards so that we can really start to tackle this at a senior leadership stewardship level rather than passing it down and making it into an HR thing.
I mean, wow, amazing. And what was the inspiration for you to start writing this book? So before we started hit record, you mentioned that there'd been, and it's, entirely on you what you want to disclose as sort of personal information, but my sense was that there was a personal trigger for you, that, or catalyst, should we say, for you to want to write this book. And I've written a couple of books myself, and I have one person in my mind when I'm writing it, so my tone is consistent and my message is to that person. It will resonate to that profile of person. What was in your mind when you this catalyst came along? You thought, I've got to get this message out. What was the urgency and rationale behind that?
Yeah, it was triggered by COVID, really. So just to go back, probably about 10 years ago, 10 to 12 years ago now, as I was working at Mind at the time, and all of a sudden I'd started to experience really severe mental health problems, severe low mood, depression, uncontrollable crying, high levels of anxiety. It would trigger binge eating. And what I discovered was that it was cyclical. It would happen around 2 weeks of the month, every single month. And I realized quite quickly, because of the work that I was doing in mental health, that I had premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD.
Okay.
The doctors didn't know anything about it 12 years ago. So I didn't have a diagnosis. They just experimented on me, really. They gave me a progesterone only pill, which made me suicidal within 3 days. They gave me an injection about that long into my stomach every couple of months to put me into chemical menopause, to shut down my cycle, which stopped the PMDD, but then I was just in menopause in my mid 30s, which was just as horrendous because I was experiencing the night sweats, the lack of estrogen, no progesterone at all. I mean, it was just a horrendous time. And I felt like the doctors didn't really know what was going on. I put on a lot of weight during this time as well. And I eventually managed to get the doctor to refer me to a specialist doctor, specialist female hormone doctor, apparently she was. And my first session with her was, she said, she didn't give me a diagnosis, she didn't tell me what it was. She said, you need to lose some weight and don't drink as much alcohol, and also cut out the carbs. So I just thought, gosh, is this my last option? Maybe it is. When you're that desperate, you will do anything. I then started a ketogenic diet. I went to the gym twice a day. I have a little bit of an addictive personality, so I was in the gym twice a day because I couldn't just go once a day, of course. I needed that dopamine twice a day at least. And I lost weight. My symptoms improved slightly. However, they did not go away. And what I discovered at that time was I knew I had to find my own solutions to this. The doctors weren't helping us. They weren't even going to give us a diagnosis. We'd tried what I thought was all the medications that we could have. And I discovered that over in America, they were using ketamine to treat women with PMDD. Now, I have a misspent youth as a teenager and in my early 20s, a bit of a party girl. And ketamine was something that, I'd experimented with in my younger days. So I thought, well, if it's working in America, let's try it. It was quite easy to get a hold of. It wasn't a big issue to do that. And I started microdosing ketamine on a monthly basis when my symptoms started to appear. And within minutes, those symptoms disappeared. They were just completely gone.
Wow.
And I was able to get out of bed, do the things I needed to do, live a normal life, go to work. I got married, and I lived like that for 18 months before COVID happened, self-medicating, living a normal life, symptoms completely disappeared. And then unfortunately, COVID hit. And I know that everybody had a different experience of that. But for me, it had such a profound experience that all of the systems that we talk about in that we have in life, we have the workplace as an organizational system. As humans, we're an individual system. We have our support system of our friends and family network. We have our societal system, which is our community and where we live and the people around us. And then we have a policy system where we have government policies that create these systems that all interact together. And will either be detrimental to our mental health and well-being, or they will be good for our mental health and well-being. And during COVID, all of those systems just collapsed within me. So I now could no longer go to the gym anymore. So that was one of my things that I needed to do. Couldn't go to the gym anymore. Walking just wasn't enough. Couldn't see any of my friends and family anymore. As we know, we weren't allowed to see friends and family. My husband was working away Monday to Friday, so I was isolated, alone. My business nearly went under, so we had everybody on furlough apart from me. I was the only one trying to turn the business around and get out there and help people, knowing that they were going through the same experience that I was and that they needed our support, but underneath absolutely crumbling. And what went from self-medication turned into a 3-year daily addiction of ketamine.
Wow, what what a journey. I mean, my goodness, that is something to go through. You're through it now, and I will focus on that in a little bit. But I think you've mentioned the word addiction, and anyone listening to this, I don't take it lightly. You know, addiction is where something is much bigger than you, and you will do something which is lie, cheat, steal, beg, borrow, whatever it takes to feed that, because there's an absolute core need. And I don't talk about this openly, but having done a stint in a mental health institute, in my, not particularly recently, but where I kind of had a very, very, very bad relapse and had to get a lot of professional help. I understand how I felt, and I know that everyone can experience things very differently. So my experience will be very different from yours, and yours from the next person, etc. I think addiction is such a difficult trap to get out of, this cycle. So talk to us about how you did get out of that, because you have, and you're here, and you're looking beautiful and radiant, and tell us what you did to get out of that. Did you get help, or is that still a self-help? What helped you?
No, I definitely needed help. And this was, for me, realizing that at the top of the business as a CEO and a founder, that business was only going to be a success if my human sustainability was right. I couldn't run the business the way I needed to because of that addiction. I was very high functioning in my addiction as well. I was still working every day. Nobody knew other than my husband and close friend and family member. So winning awards, being tripled our revenue in the middle of a ketamine addiction. So very, very high functioning. But what happened was around about 2.5 years ago now, I remember it clearly. It was a Sunday afternoon. COVID and the lockdowns had been finished for a very long time, for about 2 years now. And it dawned on me that I'd created my own lockdown with the substance instead, and had spent the whole weekend using that substance in my house, not going out, not seeing people. And I just became so angry at myself that I could have been out doing anything that I wanted to do, especially pre-COVID. I was always out, always seeing friends, at the gym, I'd be swimming. I had such a rich life, but the addiction had completely taken over, and I created my own lockdown for that. I was just very angry at myself for allowing for that realization, and realizing that I had a problem. Cried with my husband for about an hour, just sobbing, and I knew then that it needed a change, and I couldn't do it on my own. And I was actually introduced to a lady called Nitha, who owns Recovery Coach Academy, and she found me a recovery coach. So this was somebody who I paid for their service. It was somebody who'd been through addiction and recovery themselves, and was also trained to be a recovery coach professional, which meant I was getting a very personalized plan instead of a 12-step plan that, is a one-size-fits-all plan, which I knew wasn't what I needed. So yeah, I got the support that I needed and rebuilt my life from there. But one of the things that I had to do was I had to close down Our Minds Work. I didn't get the support I expected from my business partners at the time. And I just knew that if I needed to make recovery my priority, then I couldn't be working towards building this multi-million-pound business to ensure that my business partners could take dividends out every month as they wanted to. So I made the decision to close it down. And that was really hard. That was a big decision to do. But from the ashes rises the phoenix.
Yes.
And what I did instead was I didn't quit, because I found through my recovery process, my reconnection to spirituality as well, and a connection to a higher power that helped me to see that the work that I was doing was actually very purposeful, and the work that I was doing was bigger than myself. You know, we're pioneering in the world of workplace wellbeing, and pioneering human sustainability as a concept here in the UK. We've developed the first ever career pathway for wellbeing leads up to a foundation degree level. These are things that have never ever been done before. And the power behind that of knowing that we're making an impact on workplaces today to change the way of work for future generations, it was something I couldn't quit. So I then set up the Wellbeing Lead Academy, and here we are 18 months later in the Wellbeing Lead Academy, and I'm now 2.5 years into recovery and just spent 12 months writing the book around human sustainability as well. So there was a lot of triggers and motivators that were part of my recovery journey that I knew I needed to get down in paper alongside this concept. But the first 2 chapters are a memoir, the memoir about my experience in a lot of detail and depth.
Very brave, very courageous. And anyone listening to this, if you're kind of in awe like I am, this is a great Joseph Campbell. I know it's your life, but it's also got the story of a great pain becomes the purpose, actually. And you've touched on quite a few things that are really close to my heart. Number one is this extraordinary awakening through what you've been through has come this, and it's probably going to be the rest of your life purpose. It's set you on the path that you needed to be on. And I do believe that there is a higher power, and I do believe that there are signs and symbols all around us, and we're just so distracted by so much greed and status and ego and money that we don't often look for those very simple signs, which are signposting where we should be going and what we should be doing. And so sometimes the universe, some people might call it God, universe, energy, frequency, whatever you label it as, I think that sometimes we are yielded to the very lowest point of our life, so that we have to make some very, very serious decisions. Otherwise, we'll continue to meander. I talk about sleepwalking and awakened beings. And I believe that lots of people are sleepwalking through life. And I do believe there's 2 lives. And the second one starts when you realize this is it. Shit, this is it. And I've got there isn't another life. This is the real deal. And I don't know if age comes into a component of that, because I'm in my 50s. My awakening didn't come until I was probably 45. I wish to hell it had come earlier, and there's a lot of pain that come before that. And when you're a high performing person as well, in terms of a hypo, and you do have expectations of yourself, this is where the mental health can get so distorted. Because of these sometimes completely unrealistic and high expectations we put on ourselves. And actually, one of the things that a good friend of mine will talk about, and if anyone knows Sophie Pittaway would know her story, she's a health coach, and she talks about, she's a very good businesswoman. She's not just a health coach. She's got a portfolio career, and she deals with property. And she would often say, the thing that I'm doing is not really about health, it's about sustaining your life. If you do not have great health, which is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, you do not have all the facets to carry a business, to be the best version of yourself. And I completely agree with that. And I think that in this moment where we are, the statistics show that most women that are going to go out on their own do it between the ages of 47 and 55. They become very successful. A lot of those percentage come highly, very successful in their career. and they've got to this place where it is like, I know what I want, I know what I don't want, and I'm very focused on where I'm going and what I'm doing. And this is the moment when that second life, and it certainly happened for me, is there is no more time. There is no time, actually. It's fictitious. Time is a human dimension, but it's actually not really. It's a 3D thing, but it's not anywhere else. The time, we don't have time. We have experiences, we have all sorts of things, but actually it's a genuine myth that we have time. That's just a measure. So I love what you're saying about everything that, you know, you've contributed towards the book. And so for the readers, and I can't wait to get my hands on the book. And as I mentioned before, my PhD is in leadership, and I want to understand what the future of work looks like, given that we've got different generations, given that we've got AI, given that we've got all of these compounding complexities in our external world. How do we take care of the inner being is my kind of like where I kind of edge my bets. How can we create luxury within us, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions? How do we do that? So it sounds like there's a lot of alignment between us. So when the reader's reading your book, what can they expect in terms of a key takeaway? Is it something that they can, you know, really actively put into place? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not your usual leadership and business book, even though that's exactly what it is. It's a leadership and business book. My book has been written through purposeful storytelling, and all of the data, all of the stories are the reality that we are living in the here and now. And it's understanding that connection between human sustainability, business sustainability, sustainability of our economy, which then therefore, when our economy is flourishing and stabilized, we then have more investment into society and services, our, you know, availability for services like the NHS. We are then more likely to be healthier, happier humans that have well-being, who are then able to make that contribution into our communities and into our workplaces by being able to work. So the stories behind that are all about bringing this concept to life and really helping senior leaders to understand that when we're talking about workplace well-being, we're not just talking about individual well-being, we are talking about the sustainability of the workplace and also the economy and our societies as well, because they're all interlinked systems. Absolutely. That they all work together. You know, we can't have one without the other. Yeah. So the story's very, very personal. I cried quite a lot writing the book.
Therapy. Writing a book is that in itself is therapy, because when you release all of that, when you've birthed that book, there's an emptiness that comes. There's kind of like spentness, which is, you know, there's nothing left. It's a very surreal feeling, actually. But it's like working through that, because actually when you want to move through storytelling, emotion is the thing that moves people. So when you're feeling sad, or you're feeling angry, or you're feeling elated, excuse me, all of that gets translated into energy in writing, and people feel that, they experience that, which is why that's why the human experience can never be AI. Not right now, anyway, not that I'm aware of, but that's amazing. It's amazing that you've turned this into something which has really helped you heal, and also will be great benefit to a lot of people that are listening. And how can we get our hands on the book? So I know it's on waitlist.
It is, and just to go back, just to kind of finish that little bit off.
Yes,
there is, you know, it's all right. You know, there's a whole purpose to the storytelling, which is to introduce the human sustainability framework by the Wellbeing Lead Academy, which is something that I've been working on as a set of 9 disciplines that can be stewarded in the senior leadership team, so that when they are making decisions in business, they're able to ensure that human sustainability is at the forefront of their vision, the business vision, the strategic direction and mission that the company wants to move towards, so that it becomes a core driver of that organizational purpose and success. It's embedded with governance. So one of the disciplines is around governance and collective accountability, so that those human outcomes, they're actually governed and stewarded and owned, not just across the organizational system, but from that boardroom, so that senior leaders can see that they're responsible for the human health and energy and well-being of their main human resource in the business as well. Like you say, the bots haven't taken over yet, so we need to make sure that the human outcomes are governed and stewarded in the senior leadership team. Leadership is one of the disciplines as well. So how do we ensure that leaders are made accountable, that they understand that they are accountable for the cultural impact within the organization, and that the things that leaders do will either multiply well-being, trust and long-term capability for people, or it will erode it. And there's 9 more disciplines, which, you know, buy the book to find out more about the disciplines and the human sustainability framework. So yeah, just wanted to get that in, because that's the whole purpose, is to bring the concept and the framework to life. Book number 2 is I've already started book number 2, which will actually be, it'll be the roadmap of how do you actually embed and implement the framework, where book number 1's more around here's how to understand the concept and what the concept looks like.
Amazing. I think that is something that is needed, and I believe that lots of people will really benefit from your work. So amazing job, and congratulations. I really do. I'm super excited to read it myself. We are coming to the end of our time together, and so I'm quite sad to say that this is well, it's just, I'm sad and pleased at the same time. I shouldn't say sad. I'm sad it's ending, but I'm so happy that we've got to connect, learn about your story, and I sense that there's more to unpack and uncover. So I'd love you to come back at another time and share when maybe the book's published, and give a little bit more insight, because I think this is something that's really needed, and actually it's not nice to have, it's a critical. We are, like you said, they're all interconnected. We're all interconnected. People, planet, plants, profit, all of it is all this huge ecosystem, and it's all an energetic movement. And so we have to find a way to keep flow, keep it all moving in the right direction. But of course, if we keep focusing on that bottom line, and not thinking about the components that feed that bottom line, you know, this is systemic behavior here. Anyway, thank you, Emily, so much for joining me today. There'll be a description around here, so that I'll make sure that the links go in so that people can find you. They can reach out to you. I sense your framework may be something that there's going to be a lot more work come from in setting the seed for the next book. So, but for today, thank you so much, and I look forward to next time. And for those listening, I hope that you found this really insightful. And if you're anything like me, curious to know more, want to know more, it's a bit of a cliffhanger, but get the book and come back and meet with Emily and I and listen to us. Hit the subscribe button if you like what we talk about here. It's a way to support the channel and amplify. And thanks for being here. Much love from Zed, Aka, Zoe. Bye.